having teed up today's session with the fabulous Paul, what we're now going to do is we're going to move into that world of batteries. And I'm going to welcome to the stage now the fabulous Olivia, who comes to us from the wonderful organisation that is Worley. So Olivia, round of applause, and over to yourself. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Sarah. And thank you, Paul. I couldn't agree more with what you were saying about the priority of transparency. And then it does come down to walking the talk, and that really needs to happen so we get the sustainable developments that we need in mining and so many industries. So thank you so much for that, Paul. I am going to share my screen with you all, which hopefully you can now see. And hello, as Sarah mentioned, my name is Olivia McFarlane. I am based in London, but I don't sound like it. I'm from Australia. I came over here about 10 months ago to join Worley's Battery Materials Growth Unit, where I'm a business development manager. My team, we focus on and support our customers across the entire value chain of the battery. So this is from mining, brining, refining to creating and recycling the best battery for tomorrow. I've joined
Olivia,
the team.
sorry. Just to jump in, so we can't see your screen at the moment. There we go. It's beginning to think about it now. Beautiful. There you go.
Turns out I had to press share as well as switch the screen.
Amazing, isn't it? Sorry for the interruption.
There wasn't anything key. Thank you, Sarah. Anyway, so yes, I joined the team in the UK within the past year, and I was compelled by how fast-paced, innovative, fast-growing and intense the battery market is. And I also joined the team thinking, yes, batteries, that's the next big sustainable thing. That's going to help us to achieve our net zero goals and conquer this energy transition easily and save the day. I want to be part of it. Well, I quickly found out that batteries aren't all that I thought they were yet. But by adding trust and transparency in the value chain, that is where they're packed with exciting opportunities. So I would love to tell you that batteries are currently really sustainable and only great for the environment, but I'm afraid not, at least not right now. Why though? Well, long story short, batteries currently aren't as sustainable as you think they are. I won't get into the nitty-gritty of what it takes from mining the battery to a battery, but essentially what I want you to understand is that the journey the raw materials take from mine to becoming an material that then gets put into a battery is extremely energy intensive, often done under poor working conditions. It involves transporting the materials from one part of the globe to the other and undergoing extreme refining and processing, such as heating up the raw materials to the temperature of the sun for 2 weeks. So yeah, it's not that sustainable currently. When I talk about transporting them across the globe, let's look at where batteries are ending up. So here you can see the spread in demand for EVs globally. The end of the value chain is the demand center for batteries and recycling these, and it is largely driven by the demand for electric vehicles. Of this global demand, you can see it's grouped into 3 main regions: East Asia, Europe, and North America. And you can see the tremendous growth in demand that is forecasted, but it's being driven, that's being driven by many strong influences, such as government and policies driving uptake in EVs, the cost of EVs decreasing, society is making EVs more socially acceptable and attractive to consumers, and the technology of batteries is improving. Now, what about the other end of the value chain? Particularly the anode and cathode materials, which make up over 60% of the value chain. If we do a bit of high school chem, battery is made up of anode, cathode, electrolytes. So the cathode and anode, if we want to go into that more, then reach out to me after, or pop a question in the chat. But the cathode and the anode are made up of raw materials, with the most common today being lithium, nickel, manganese, and cobalt for the cathode, and graphite for the anode. Altogether, they go into making what you would have probably heard of, a lithium-ion battery. And forecasts indicate that lithium-ion batteries will be the standard solution for EVs over the next 10 years or so. Now, let's look at where these raw materials are located and coming from compared to where they're ending up. So remember this graph, and then, yeah. As you can see, where the minerals for the lithium-ion batteries are is not where the demand for EVs, aka the end market, sits. So we've got this massive disconnect. For example, 40% of lithium is coming from Australia. The majority of cobalt is coming out of Africa, but neither of these countries have large end markets for EVs. Then, alternatively, you have Europe, which accounts for more than 1/4 of worldwide EV assembly, but home to very little of the supply chain. So now we have the problem that either ends of the supply chain are vastly disconnected. Raw materials are having to be transported across the globe to get to their final destination. And through the process of going from mine to becoming an active material, we are losing visibility of what's actually happening to the materials, making it very hard to track how truly sustainable they are by the time the materials get to being in a battery. This slide here shows the value chain on the graph, and this is what I've been talking about when I say from mining, brining, refining, all the way on the far left to the opposite end where it comes to EV manufacturing and recycling. I won't go into the nitty-gritty of this in just looking at the time, but essentially what is important to know is that we've got either ends of the value chain at fixed locations. We know we can't change the mines, the location of the mines, the minerals are where they are. Also know that we can't change the location of the EV manufacturing facilities because we've got traditional, internal combustion engine manufacturing facilities transitioning their facilities into EV manufacturing facilities. So they are where they are. Then we've got the battery manufacturing and the recycling plants co-locating around EV manufacturing facilities. And that is due to transporting it from battery manufacturing, the safety of it and the ease of it being better if it's nearby, and recycling legislation is driving that to be done in the countries where the EV manufacturing is happening. So we're left with this small part of the value chain, which you can see in the navy blue. But in real life, this is actually very opaque, what is happening in this part of the value chain. And what I mean by this is this part of the value chain is currently where we are seeing the materials be transported to another area of the world for refining and processing, and we're losing visibility of what's happening to them until they come back to usually the west and to the fixed locations at the other end of the value chain. So once the raw materials go to those areas, we don't know what happens to them for the conditions they're refined under, the carbon that is being emitted to process them, and more. For example, a lot of the time they're going to China when they're going to the refined intermediate stage. And most of the Chinese graphitization and anode manufacturing occurs in remote areas where energy prices are low, where coal-fired power plants are abundant. Additionally, some of the mining that occurs for the raw materials is done in poorer countries, and it's not always to the expected Western standards. But we can't track or know this for sure, and that is why we need transparency. Everyday consumers are expecting to see exactly where things have come from so they can see and understand how sustainable a product is and what impact there was to produce it. So at the moment, there's no price tag on ESG, and my suggestion is that we need to redefine and broaden the definition of value to include more than just the economic value, but instead also include all the ESG considerations of how minerals flow through the entire value chain. Now, unfortunately, in the capitalist society, we measure everything on the bottom line, which is made up of capex spent to get something up and going, plus the amount made through operations. There isn't much extra value associated, with how green or sustainable a product is, and it is therefore currently not economically feasible for people to charge more for ESG considerations. This needs to change, and as Sarah said in the intro, we need to make ESG a reality. We need to put a price on the entire ESG value of a battery, and consumers need to be willing to pay. But this will require all parts of the value chain to become more transparent so consumers can trust and be willing to pay this extra price. Governments can provide funding to stimulate the industry, and we've seen that in America that has done this really well by putting money into the economy to get things going. But the longer term and more sustainable way to make this happen needs to come from the everyday consumer, accepting that we need to pay more for a more sustainable vehicle. Ultimately, consumers need to accept that there is a price for delivering a more sustainable world. The problem is we're used to getting things cheap, although if it comes cheaper, it often isn't done. It is often doing more harm, than good. With, for instance, the battery making process being powered by coal and coming from a value chain that is opaque to track, but coming with a cheaper price tag. So essentially, I want to end on is the question to you guys. Is our consumer society willing to pay a premium to accelerate sustainability? So I would like to end on this. How much more would you be willing to pay for an EV? And did you just think of a dollar value? Or did you think of a value that included a transparent supply chain of the EV that has been made with reduced carbon emissions and from sustainable sources of raw materials in socially acceptable conditions and more? What about if you could trust and see the whole value chain transparently? Combating climate change does not come for free, and I think it's time we stop expecting it to. And with that, Sarah, that is the end of my presentations. Maybe a few questions have come in. I see I've stopped.
Fantastic.
Now.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Olivia. That was truly brilliant. I'm going to steal some of those diagrams, if I may, with regards to not only where the end users tend to be based, also where the materials tend to come from, and then also what is fixed and what could be moved in terms of that geographical location, in terms of where certain tasks take place. So everyone, please put your hands together for the fabulous Olivia. Fantastic. Excellent. Now, Olivia, what you were saying there, I think, builds beautifully on what Paul was saying in terms of how do people actually value where these materials come from. And I think that the pointing towards it's not just about the financial value, but the other forms of value as well. Is that correct? So it's, again, looking for value in things like people and planet, not just the money side. Is that correct?
Yeah. So at the moment, as I said, we're measuring, we're putting the value on batteries and a lot of things just with the bottom line. We're not considering all that they go through, and consumers, we're just used to getting things cheaply, and if we can, but we need to recognize that this isn't all going to happen without us paying a bit more. We can't rely on policies which will help. Governments can put money into this and incentivize it, but it's not the long-term sustainable solution that is going to help us achieve our sustainability goals. So yeah, we need to broaden and define and get used to a different value that includes, which will correlate to a higher price tag. But that is a price tag that will help us achieve the more sustainable world, a more economical and social, and all improved economical, social, and governance.
Thanks, Olivia. I've got a question that's just come in to say, okay, great. So we might just have to accept the fact that if we want to do this right, then it's going to cost us as the end consumer more money. But how does this stack up with regards to the cost of living crisis that many people are facing at the moment? So when you've got people who are in this world of tension saying, I don't actually have any more money, but I want to be able to carry on living in the way that I've become accustomed. Do you have any thoughts with regards to how do you address that tension?
If I had all the answers, I would be working it out myself. But I mean, I think that comes down to changing habits. I think that we're used to having so much. The consumer society, we're used to being able to get the next new thing. It's just about reusing a lot of what we've already got. We don't have to have the next new thing always. If you can't afford it, maybe just, yeah, reuse what you've got rather than demand and buy the next new iPhone, or use the iPhone 14, I guess. But yeah, the cost of living is putting a lot of pressures and making it hard to accept the increase in price tags for paying for a more sustainable product. But I guess that's where we need to actually look at what we're prioritizing. And this is really needing to happen as a priority. We're at a ticking time bomb now.
And so with this, and thanks as well for the questions, by the way, that are coming in behind the scenes. Do you see, because this is a monumental challenge, do you see this as something that is terrifying or actually really exciting in terms of the change that we need to go through over the next few years?
Exciting.
I would never have guessed that, Olivia.
Exciting. I was talking to Dr. Paul Ebert, who is the head of the energy transition at Worley, and he was like, you're about to go into an extremely exciting part of your career. The amount of changes that are about to happen in the next 10, 20, 30 years that people my age, I'm 24, we are going to witness and be part of, it's going to be immense. We don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know the technologies and the changes that are going to happen. The technologies of today aren't going to be the ones that save the world tomorrow, but being part of the creation and seeing those actually get put into play and how they play out, it's going to be really, really cool. It's going to be a challenge, but we have got some of the greatest minds to work on it. So I think it's very exciting, Sarah.
I'm with you now. I'm slightly older than 24, but I too am very excited with regards to what we're looking at. And I love the phrase you just came out with there, which is the technologies of today are not going to be the technologies that are going to solve the challenges of tomorrow. I think that that's fantastic and just shows that innovation, creativity, etc., is where it's at in terms of what needs to happen. Now, I've got one final question for you that's come in from Pip. And she asks, is there a sustainable way to recycle batteries yet? I don't think we should be churning out things that we can't recycle. How is that sustainable? What do you reckon?
Like batteries, they're good. They can be improved. Long story short, there is ways to recycling, but they are improving and they do need to be improved. It's a journey that we're going on. Legislation is making it demanding for it to become more sustainable, but it is an energy intensive process currently. We could be recycling a lot more and getting back a lot more from the final product that we're recycling. So yeah, we're on a journey with recycling. This whole energy transition, it's a journey, and it needs to be improved, is the long story short, but it's better than doing nothing. And we need to be doing it.
I'm loving it. So technologies of tomorrow, be optimistic and excited about everything that we're looking at. And it's a journey, but we're better than doing nothing. Fabulous. So with that, Olivia, thank you so much. Your insight has been fantastic. Round of applause, everybody, for the fabulous Olivia McFarlane. Thank you very much.
Thanks.